Well, if a forensic expert finds this concerning, I guess we're not wrong to also find it a little odd, right? Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Court TV put out their Idaho case, Bryan Kohberger, whatever you want to call it, show over the weekend, last weekend. It took me a few days to watch it because I was busy and I honestly just wanted to kind of give the case a couple of days to rest. We had the 1 year mark happen on Monday, the 13th, and I just kind of wanted to give the case a few days to breathe. But I watched it yesterday and I made some notes on some points that they made. So now we're going to go over what I thought about Court TV's latest episode on the Idaho 4 case. They do make the point in here that Kaylee's car was pretty much the only reason why she went back that weekend. Now, in one of the latest interviews from the Goncalves family, Christy did mention that there was some sort of test or last class that Kaylee was supposed to be taking on Monday, but from what it sounds, if she wouldn't have gotten that car, she would have just shown up Monday for her last test, last class situation, and she wouldn't have gone back at all that weekend. So the car was kind of the determining factor, especially since we've been hearing this entire time that Dylan had invited her to be a plus one at something and that Kaylee had hesitation about even going back that weekend. The fact that they have told us from the very beginning that Kaylee was hesitant to go back and then this all happened has just always been something that my brain cannot let go of. Now, around the 8-minute mark, and I will have the link for the posting of this video on YouTube from Court TV's channel in the description box, so that if I mention these minute points, you guys can go back and take a look for it yourselves so that y'all can understand maybe the facial expressions that these people are making. I can't show you here because Court TV will strike this video with the quickness, okay? But Bill Thompson is asked within the first week, from what I'm understanding from what we're being told, the timeline is that these interviews are being done in this episode. Within a week, Bill Thompson is asked if he had his own children, would he feel safe for them living either on U of I campus or around U of I campus, considering that the King Roadhouse was not a campus house. It was a house in a residential neighborhood that just a whole bunch of college kids basically lived in, but it actually was not part of the university's land at all. And just for the record, I know that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with past ownership of the house when it comes to who used to live there, where the house is at now with the president of the university. I know, I'm aware of all of that crazy stuff. I don't know if I'm going to get into it here. It seems like there's already a lot of people talking about that, and I don't know how to wrap my brain around that full circle situation. So that's all I'm going to say about it at this point. But Bill Thompson again is asked if at this point, which again is like a week or so into the investigation. So before even the end of November, we're basically not even at Thanksgiving whenever this interview is done. Bill Thompson is asked if he would feel safe for his children to live in or around at U of I campus, and he says yes. Even though he knows that several people would not, he understands why they wouldn't. He has more knowledge about what's going on there, so he can safely basically state that yes, he would feel safe for his children to be living in this area a week into this crime. What did they know a week in? I would love to know what Bill Thompson knew a week into the investigation to make him state that. And it also kind of goes back to the fact that the police department never really put out an alert for people to be on alert. I mean, obviously, hello, you have a quadruple homicide. Everyone needs to be on alert without anyone telling you that you need to be on alert. But for the police to not come out and verbally state, we feel as if this person is in the community, be vigilant. This is what you need to watch for. None of those things. And now Bill Thompson having that sort of response. What did they know a week in? Now, I don't know if this is the reporter on the Court TV show that's saying this out of her own words, or if this is literally something that she was told. But when it comes to the whole frozen shock phase for Dylan, verbatim, the court TV girl, and I'm sorry, I don't know her name, the court TV girl says Dylan described herself as being in a frozen shock phase. Okay. We've had a lot of issues with that word being used. I have, because I don't know anyone that age that would say things like clad in black and frozen shock phase. I don't. I don't at all. So a lot of us believe that that's just the law enforcement's way of basically reforming the words that Dylan probably told them, right? But we don't really know that, I guess, right? We don't. We don't know how Dylan talks. I, from Texas, don't know anything really about the way that people speak up in like Michigan and Minnesota and New York. There's words that are used in sentences that are used for things that us down here wouldn't have any idea what the hell you're talking about, right? So I guess for us to state, there's no way that this young college kid, whatever, young adult, said clad in black in frozen shock phase. What if there is a possibility that's exactly what she said because she just couldn't think of anything else and so it just came out weird? That's a possibility too. Because if Dylan is describing herself as being in a frozen shock phase, that's a little strange. And there's really only two ways to look at that entire situation. People are like, oh, it's a party house. She didn't feel the need to call 911 because it was a party house and they're used to a bunch of strange people being there in the middle of the night. So then why lock yourself into a bedroom door and say that you're in a frozen shock phase and not call 911? Because that's the excuse for not calling 911 for 8 hours, right? That it was a party house and everything just seemed normal. Well, if everything just seemed normal, then what the hell are you in a frozen shock phase for, locking yourself behind a bedroom door? And if you're in a frozen shock phase and you're locking yourself behind a bedroom door, then that's not normal. And why did you not call 911? See, there's no way that you can take everything that I just said and make that make sense for no 911 call. You either did not see anything odd enough to put you in a frozen shock phase, or you did see something odd enough to put you in a frozen shock phase and still chose to not do the right thing for 8 hours. And again, and I say this every time we talk about this, the PCA does not put the ending time of the incident at 4:20 when they're telling us that the suspect's vehicle left the area. They put the end time of the incident at 4:25 based off the roommates' phones. There's a reason. There's a reason. They talked about all of the internet stuff that was going on. They brought up Hoodie Guy and the grub truck, and yeah, that stuff got real wild there for a minute. Probably has not calmed down at all. I just don't see all of that on my feed anymore. And of course, they bring up the white Hyundai Elantra, which rightfully so, because that's like their biggest thing here, right? Besides the DNA on the knife sheath. And I will say again, they claim to have all this footage, because at this part of this little court TV show, they're showing surveillance cameras and talking about traffic cams and all those things, right? All the camera footage they claim that they have of him driving through all these areas and through the college areas and in through the neighborhood, they never once showed us the vehicle. To this day, have never shown us the vehicle. And yeah, maybe right now it'd be kind of pointless, right? Because he's in jail and that's the guy that they think did this and they're trying to lay it all out to us, right? But why, whenever we were literally like being told to look out for this vehicle and call in any tips about this vehicle, were we not shown the vehicle? If they have all of this surveillance footage, if they pulled cameras within like a few hours of the 911 call from the area itself, from the neighborhood, why have we not been given some sort of ring cam still shot? Why? Why were we not given it then to look for the right vehicle? To do so that the people's eyes that were being asked to look for this thing could get an actual visual of what we were looking for. We were just given stock photos. The same problem we had in the Kylie Rodney case. This is a teenage girl that just bought an SUV or had an SUV given to her, and there's no pictures of her with the vehicle that she later would be found deceased in the bottom of a body of water. Never showed us the vehicle. Ever. How can you be on the lookout for something if you don't know what it is? And then, of course, there was all of the insanity of the white Hyundai Elantra looking vehicle in the band-filled body cam, and then the one that ended up crashed up in Oregon. All of that happening within, like, what, 36 hours? 36 to 48 hours of themselves. It was a little intense for a minute. Now, after the car thing, they mentioned the fact that they have him in an area, for 12 times, and I will go back to this. In the PCA itself, they give us information about a false phone ping. That his phone shows that he was in the Moscow area, but that they know for a fact that that's not true. Well, that's because they were able to tell by wherever it was telling them that he pinged and the traffic cameras or whatever cameras that they were able to pull in that area that his vehicle and himself were not in the area. That's how they were able to tell that was a false ping. Now, they can't really do that for the other 12. I mean, they maybe could, but it'd be a whole lot harder. And when it comes to like the cast information, so I don't know if they can go back and get the exact like triangulation and location just as like intense for those 12 as they can for the time that the incident happened, and then the fact that we have his phone going back to the area between 9 and 9:30. That is another one of those weird pieces to this that just kind of like throws me off, especially knowing that a knife sheath was found. Yeah. Now they say in here that the SWAT team showed up to his mom and daddy's house at 1:30 in the morning. I could have sworn it was closer to 4. Now they have this forensic DNA expert speak in here, and she's basically been saying things that I've been saying for quite a while now. That DNA, especially touch DNA, doesn't really mean much. It doesn't. Now, apparently, the fact that it is a single source DNA makes it the strongest of the weakest types of DNA, if that makes sense. Because, like we've mentioned, touch DNA, trace DNA, things like that are minuscule can happen anywhere. Your DNA can be found in a room that you've never even gone into. Your DNA can be found on an item that you've never once touched or even been around, and that's just facts. That is facts, people. For those of you that think that my little Walmart cereal aisle scenario is a bit far-fetched, it's not. It's literally not at all. You walk into a public area and you're breathing in the DNA of pretty much everyone within a certain radius of you. Even people that haven't even been in that room. You are literally breathing in microscopic particles of them everywhere you go, literally. But for it to be touch DNA, something substantial enough for testing, yes, even that amount of DNA can be found of a person that is in a room that that person has never been in or on an item that that person has never touched. The expert in this says so. And I've been kind of preaching that for a while now. Touch DNA is kind of like the court jester of all DNAs. That's why I say it's single source, meaning it's the strongest of the weakest type of DNA. Single source gives you very specific information about the person it came from. Pretty much it gives you a clear-cut picture of where the DNA came from, but when it comes to how the DNA got there, that's the problem with these types of DNA. And they mention how not only do we not have a motive in this case, which a lot of people think isn't important, but it is important. Because he was either infatuated with their lifestyle, if this was him, there would have been something about their lifestyle to where he would have attacked them all, and this was a full-on attack on this group of people, this house, or there was one person that this person was infatuated with, and the entire plan went to hell. The why is important because it might be able to prevent things from happening later. So people that say that the motive doesn't matter, maybe for a legal standpoint, and a lot of people take their reasonings to the grave. All right. But the why matters regardless. So not only at this point do we not have a motive, but we have no true connections either. And this is kind of where court TV got on my nerves. All right. This is like The second, third, maybe fifth time that we've seen these screenshots of this Instagram account that is supposed to be Bryan Kohberger's. That, of course, it's gone now. But this is the one that started going around literally the second that his name was announced as being the person arrested in this case. And we've had a lot of back and forth with Kaylee's family on if they saw it before he was arrested, because thousands and thousands of us heard Steve Goncalves claim that they knew who was getting arrested a few hours before it even happened, that they received a phone call about it, and then they went searching around. But then we've also had Olivia come out and say stuff like, we knew we only had a few moments before things got wonky, meaning they had the name as soon as the public had the name, and they knew that they didn't have long before a whole bunch of crazy fake profiles just basically took over everything, right? Those are two completely different scenarios and very hard to figure out which one is which. But again, they show this profile and notice that at the top it claims that Court TV cannot verify it. They've done this a million times. They have shown this Instagram profile. And by the way, this time around, it's not following Xana and Kaylee and Maddie, or Kaylee and Maddie. It's only following Maddie. All of a sudden, the story has now flipped, and this profile was only following Maddie. So even that part of it has now changed up. But I don't understand how they can just throw this information on the screen like this and then state, we cannot verify this. Like, you should have just stopped it when we said we still haven't been able to find a valid connection and then moved on to the next subject. I don't know why they're allowed to show this kind of stuff to the masses the way that they do. Whenever they say something, when Court TV says something, millions of people listen. They go on and on and on about how people really believe that it was his and all the reasons why it could be, and then just in the top silently it just states Court TV cannot validate. Well, then stop talking about the stupid social media profile. Just because somebody was following a whole bunch of family members doesn't mean anything. Bryan Kohberger's name got dropped. Somebody created a profile with the very first picture they found of him online and just typed in the name Kohberger and followed every Kohberger on Instagram. That's how that profile was most likely created. Now, they talk about the Reddit posts, and I've talked about this in ways that bother people, but that's fine. I don't really care. I'm not here as someone who's a fan of anyone. I'm trying to figure out what actually went on here. I'm trying to wrap my mind around something so horrendous and unnecessary is what this is. Okay. When I saw these Reddit posts, I know that he studies criminal justice. Okay. But when I look at the way that these things are worded, when I look at the things that are being asked in these posts, they're not the way that I would word them. If this were me and I was continuing on with my bachelor's degree and this was some sort of study that I was doing, I wouldn't have worded things the way that Bryan did. The way that Bryan asked those questions seems more like personal. And I've kind of always wondered for a while now if him getting, losing all of that weight and gaining all that confidence and starting psychology classes and all of this was really more him trying to figure himself out. I've mentioned this in videos months back. I remember having this conversation. I mean, albeit with myself into a camera for you guys to comment on later, but I've discussed this with you. And there's a possibility that I'm wrong, but there's a possibility that I'm not. But I don't see those questions that he asked and the way that he asked them being for anything other than somebody trying to figure out their own ish. And again, I could be wrong, because whenever you are in those fields, you do try to do everything you can to try to figure it out, right? To figure out the mind of a true monster, right? But I don't know. That whole survey thing that he did has always just led me to, this is more of a personal journey for him. And that's just me. Now, one of these people in here states that this was like a sexual domination situation. I don't I don't really know what they mean by that in this case. And I'm only mentioning it because I know a lot of people are going to hear it. A lot of people have heard it, but I personally don't comprehend where they're coming from with that. And I know that, knives can be considered, a phallic type weapon, and there's a whole very, very deep psychological reasoning behind a lot of things, right? Maybe if it would have just been one of them, maybe. And again, in my opinion, if Bryan did this, he's not as smart as he wants everyone to think he is. Because, like I said, I can give you making mistakes and in the heat of the moment. But if he really is the one that did this, then he's wasted everyone's time and his parents' money and everything else because he's made mistakes for months. If he was using his own vehicle and stalking them physically in his own car, and he had his phone with him, and he could be tracked for months and months and months, and he's not very smart at what he does at all. Again, instantaneous mistakes, cool. I'll let you make it. But months and months of mistakes, it just doesn't seem to fit, right? It just doesn't. So like I've said, if this was Bryan, if Bryan really did do all of this, I don't believe that it would have been everyone that was a target. I believe he would have had one target, and maybe then and only then could this whole sexual dominant situation maybe be a thing. But if that's the situation, then literally the other three people died by coincidental happenstance, wrong place, wrong time type scenarios. One person, four people, less than 10 minutes, that still gives time for downstairs to hear what's going upstairs and react, or flip it, the upstairs to hear what's going on downstairs and react. And nobody reacted. Yeah, it just goes round and round and round, right? Now at minute 40, the DNA expert says, and I typed the little note out because I wanted to speak this to you the way that she says it. What's going on in Bryan Kohberger's case that's very concerning is the government does not want to turn over in discovery what all was searched, what databases were searched, and what records were obtained. So if a forensic DNA expert is coming out on this worldwide show and telling everyone that it is concerning that the feds are being so secretive about the IGG investigation, then all of us out here that have been questioning the IGG have been right to be asking those questions. And honestly, I don't want to hear nothing from anybody about it anymore. The FBI needs to hand over what they did and how they got to their conclusion. If you didn't show your work in class, did you not fail the assignment? This is no different. But I do believe that that is it for my rundown of the Court TV episode. If you liked this video, please not forget to leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. See y'all.